What is up, guys? Randomodium here. So I know I'm a little bit late to this party, but they did come out with a dev vlog on the preseason 2021 gameplay plans, and I did want to talk about this because they are deciding that they want to focus on items in 2021. So 2020 was the Elemental Rift. That's what they're going to bring new to the Rift. It looks like for 2021, they want to completely revamp the entire item shop and things like that. And the reason why I want to talk about this is I actually was working on a tool that basically helps people figure out what are the most efficient items, given their situation in every single game. So you can see that I basically come up with every single item. And for some items, like for example, Cinder Hulk, it has different efficiencies based off of how much HP you have, or Magi's, how many stacks you have. You can see the efficiencies, the hex core, things like that. So I came up with this tool, and I've been working on it for a while, and I figured now would be a good time to release it because this tool is not going to be up to date anymore starting in 2021. So I at least want you guys to get a couple months with this tool to give me feedback, and then I'll be updating this tool obviously in 2021 with the new item system. So hopefully we can get a better understanding of these new items and yeah, have fun with that basically. So we will get into the changes, and the link to my little item tool will be in the video description below. And it also, all of my tools are on my Discord. So if you don't know where any of my tools are, there's actually a channel called Tools on my Discord, and that's kind of like your one-stop shop for all of my tools that I've released so far. And I try to release new tools whenever I can. So anyway, so they're going to give us a little bit of preseason talk in June. So yeah, they talk about how last preseason they did Rise of the Elements, and then this coming preseason they want to build up and refine the item system. So what they're saying is that they want to have 34% retained items, 33% improved items, and 33% new items. So that's actually kind of interesting. So that means that 34% are roughly going to not change at all, and I'm wondering if they're just talking about the finished items, or are they like the highest tier items, or are they talking like the basic items as well? Because I'm assuming like BF sword isn't going anywhere. I'm assuming like pickaxe and longsword aren't going anywhere. Do those fall into the 34% that are retained? And if so, that means that there actually are way more changes than those numbers would kind of indicate. Basically, like keeping all the basic items the same would kind of skew those numbers in a different way. So interesting what they want to do with that. So the ideal item system. So I'm assuming they're also doing this for Wild Rift as well. So I bet you this has to do with also the Wild Rift release. So what they want to do is revisit and refine our stance on what the item system is meant to do. So items provide power for early game consequences and high moments. So yeah, once you get ahead, it can feel really good when you hit those item power spikes. So the core reason for items' existence is so players can become more powerful over the course of the game at different paces, with early successes generating gold to push your item build ahead of your opponents. Every outplay and misplay creates consequences for your power later in the game, but not so much that comebacks are impossible. Their current assessment is very good. We're feeling pretty good about the current state of snowball and power curves in the game. This preseason should dramatically shift the power of gold efficiency items in the game. So yeah, I guess my tool will be at least a little bit. I won't have to scrap it, all of it, if they're not going to change that much of the gold efficiency and the basics of the item system and the gold efficiency per stat. So the next thing is they want to make sure the items are satisfying to earn and use. So each game is a miniature RPG loop where your champion powers up from weak to godlike strength. The item system's key is making the ascent in power feel earned and satisfying. They rate that as good. The gold system for earning items rewards skilled play. However, while there are many iconic and satisfying items in the system today, others have a lot of hidden, hard-to-notice power that makes them feel weaker and unsatisfying. That's really true. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this item tool, because I feel like a lot of items that aren't picked a lot are actually really gold efficient. Like, for example, I was advocating for years before Gargoyle Stoneplate became like a staple on supports and other champions. The Gargoyle Stoneplate, for the stats it gives you, it's incredibly gold efficient. And there was a lot of other supportive items that are extremely gold efficient. So yeah, I definitely think that a lot of items have a lot of hidden power, and they aren't played as much because of that hidden power. So it'll be interesting to see how they make, especially like supportive and tank items, more satisfying to earn and use. I think that's where they need to really improve how the items feel. Right, reactive item choices add game-to-game variance and reward strategy. Unlike runes, you can continuously adjust your item build based on what's happening in the game. We want players to read and react to each game's unique happenings with smart item choices that lead to a higher success than if they built the same things in the same order every game. Yeah, that's big, because it seems like a lot of champions, they've got 2 or 3 core items, and they're going to go those 2 or 3 core items in 99% of the games, and that's not fun. So yeah, they rate it as okay, which I would agree with. For some champions like tanks, the item system offers rich strategic depth and choices. I'd say somewhat. I feel like some of the choices are a bit lacking when it comes to the MR side. I feel like the armor side is very clear. There's a lot of strategic depth there. But with the MR side, Spirit Visage most of the time is the best item, just based off of the gold efficiency that that item has. Adaptive Helm is just not as stat efficient unless you really have somebody that you need to shut down, like a Rise or a Cassiopeia, where Adaptive Helm is really good on that. And then Abyssal Mask is kind of good in some circumstances, but a lot of times it gets outshined by Spirit Visage. On the other hand, we have a number of classes and champions with linear builds with room for adaptation. Mage items are particularly solved. Yeah, that's very true. So most mages go Luden's Echo, or at least get a Lost Chapter first. And then, yeah, obviously they're going to get Rabadons, etc., etc., etc. And then, of course, we have the Morello versus Leandri's debate. But we should have more of those type of debates. I'm hoping that when they redo these items, we have more discussions like the Leandri's versus Morello. It would be better for us to really be able to talk about pros and cons of each item, and when each item is advantageous over the other, as opposed to just people saying, oh, you just always go these items on this champion. All right, items augment your champion's playstyle. Full item builds should integrate a slight gameplay twist or addition into a champion's play pattern that doesn't override the champion's kit. That's actually really important. So yeah, they want to say that items are secondary to the champion's kit. I would agree with that. Perfect example of this today is Trinity Force, which adds a nuanced but not overly complicated new auto attack pattern. Yeah, I would agree with that. We had doing auto attack resets, that type of stuff, combining abilities with auto attacks is great for Trinity Force. Not every item should do this individually, or else a full build would be asking you to do too many things at once. I don't know if I agree with that. I actually like having active items. I feel like it adds a new layer of depth to the game. I actually like running multiple active items when I can. I like having items that give me a lot of different options, like, having a locket of the Iron Solari. Like, that's really useful. Having a redemption. Yeah, I wish we had more of that stuff, not less. So the current assessment is okay. Yeah, I'd agree with that. So this depends heavily on what class or champion you look at, some being about right, some with not enough new interest, marksmen, and some with too many effects that overshadow their champion's kit, enchanters. So they're saying that they want to have more stuff for marksmen and less stuff for enchanters. I would actually prefer you to be more on the enchanter side of things than the marksman side of things. Like, I feel like everyone should have at least 1 or 2 active items that they can use, and then other things like a Trinity Force or something else that kind of, augment their kit in other ways. I mean, maybe you don't need to have 4 or 5, but you also should leave it open so that you could go 4 or 5 active items if you wanted to do that. All right, and then the item system is intuitive. With a deep and complex item system, the choices, stats, and ways to acquire items should be clear and intuitive. Current assessment, poor. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Try to explain the item system to a new League of Legends player, and yeah, you'll see their eyes cross at least once when you're talking to them. So yeah, navigating the shop, the way stats stack and interact, understanding trade-offs between the items, uniques, and stats are all ways we can improve. Yeah, that's the whole reason why I created that tool, because most people don't understand which items are gold efficient, what are the trade-offs that you're getting, all that type of stuff. Yeah, a lot of prospective players who might love League are scared away by the impenetrable item system in their first few games. Yep. We believe learning the item system over time is a key part of growing as a league player, but an untuned system can be a roadblock to believing it's possible to achieve that growth. I agree. Like the skill floor is so high already for new players. You have to understand 140 different champions, and then every champion has a bunch of different skins that may augment what their abilities look like. You got all these different item builds. You got all the runes. You got summoner spells you got to keep track of. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for a new player, and I definitely agree that the item shop is pretty bad. Pretty bad, especially for new players. So goals for the preseason. Item purchasing is quick and intuitive. Sure. Every champion can make strategic decisions through item choices every game. Okay. Item builds enable exciting ways to master your champion. That's interesting. I'm wondering how they're going to do that. Items feel epically powerful and enhance your champion's fantasy. I'm all for that. And iconic items are retained, and you don't have to relearn everything from scratch. So I wonder what they define as the iconic items. I'm assuming things like Rabadons or things like Infinity Edge, that type of stuff. Trinity Force, obviously. Yeah, it'd be interesting which are the iconic items that are kept. Okay, so they want to polish every item. So items should have a clear, unique, and single purpose. That's interesting. They bold single purpose. They want every item in the shop to have a clear purpose that sets it apart from the other choices in the shop. Multiple items overlapping in purpose or items with confusing or conflicting mechanics undermine the clarity of choices and bloat the system overall. I'm wondering which ones they think have conflicting mechanics or confusing mechanics. It'd be interesting to get like some examples that they would provide. Items should fit one of two archetypes, either contextual purpose or a kit augment. Okay, so they're saying that contextual purpose, situational items allow players to counter certain champions or events in the game, like a Quicksilver Sash. Okay, makes sense. Kit augmentations are items that are pickable in any game and have satisfying synergy with a champion's kit to make them feel more complete, like Lichbane. So, okay, I guess Trinity Force would fall into that as well. Interesting. All right, and then interesting build paths provide variety and small choice opportunities. So great legendary items, what they're calling tier 3, have smaller choices peppered throughout each component or advanced item choice. Small optimizations to respond to a lane matchup. If I'm building Trinity Force, do I build Stinger for longer all-ins or Sheen for trades first? Or risk-reward trade-offs around buying small or saving up for bigger components? I have 1100 gold. Do I back for pickaxe or I risk staying for BF sword? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Those are all really good trade-offs that I would agree with or that are really good. And then item design is elegant, and we use only the mechanics that we need. Over time, a lot of items have accumulated some unnecessary bloat in a number of stats and passive effects. We can do work to focus items into needed stats and mechanics for them to effectively deliver their purpose. Interesting. So I'm wondering if this means that they're going to make it so that items only give like 2 or 3 different stats rather than giving like a bunch of different like smaller amounts of stats. I'm wondering if you go for like an armor item, it'll only give armor and health and nothing else. And if you go for an ability power item, it'll only give ability power and mana or something like that. Rather than giving you a bunch of different stats that you may not be able to make the most use of. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that. And then items contribute to an overall healthy game by not removing counterplay and weaknesses. Okay, interesting. They want to have where all champions have clear weaknesses in counterplay, as well as the right durability, utility, and damage output. Reactive or counter item choices should confer an advantage against the right opponent, but not completely negate the item. Additionally, they are meant to come at a significant cost to the champion's ideal build path. For example, diverting into a defensive item should offer significantly less DPS than pure offensive alternatives, but still is the right choice against a fed assassin. So that makes me wonder what they're going to do with things like bruiser items that provide you with quite a bit of defensive capabilities as well as offensive capabilities, like, for example, Steric's Gauge, Death's Stance, that type of stuff. Those type of items feel like they might get changed or they might get the axe because they seem counter to what this part is saying. And then also I would wonder things like GA is on his hourglass, that type of stuff. Do they consider that to be healthy or do they consider that to be unhealthy? So I am curious to see what they define as healthy. for these type of items. All right, so big shop upgrade. Last but not least, we definitely were doing the shop interface. Tons of improvement. This is what they're suggesting. So, okay, so you can go for Hextech Proto Belt, and they say it's mobility. Or you can do Morellonomicon, which is anti-healing. Or you can go Rabadon's Death Cap, which is an AP amplifier. The problem is that I see right now is that you see Proto Belt's only 2,500, Morellonomicon is 3,000, and Rabadon's Death Cap is 3,600. So I'm wondering if there's a way that they could make it so that it provides you with different items that are all roughly the same gold, because that would give you a much clearer, like, I can spend 3,000 gold for anti-healing, or I can spend 3,000 gold for mobility or AP amplifier, whatever it is. The fact that they're different, I feel like the value of the items, right, the gold difference needs to be highlighted a little bit more, because I feel like new players would make the mistake of never going for Proto Belt or something like that, because they think that these items might be all the same cost. But maybe that's just me. They wanted better recommendations compared to our current handmade recommended item pages. Can be out of date. We want to directly integrate our data to have always up-to-date recommendations based on highly skilled player choices. This is freaking awesome. So they're actually going to take the Riot API and make it so that the recommended items automatically update based off of API data. This is what we have been needing for like 5 or 6 years. So unfortunately, a lot of those third-party apps that do this for you are now going to become obsolete. But this is awesome. Love this. Focus choices. Not every item is equally viable at any given point in the game, and the shop can make it hard to find viable choices since it presents hundreds of options at once. We want rec items to dynamically surface the top few choices to the player at any point in the game. I wonder how they're going to do that. That's interesting. So they're saying that like it's going to tell you like, oh, hey, the other team has got a lot of healing. Maybe you want to buy Morellonomicon. I wonder if it's going to give you that amount of like that type of recommendation, or if it's going to be more general. Don't remove the strategy. Even though this is the more curated shop experience, we still want to present options to the player, not a linear build path. Knowing when it's the right game for Thornmail or Random Its Omen is still a decision we leave to the player. Okay. And then contextual analysis, helping less experienced players gain experience with reactive item decisions making is a core goal. Awesome! So they're going to actually try to design the system to make it so that it helps players come up with reactive item decisions. Okay, so we're adding some new systems to analyze the allies and enemies in each game and show you which items offer effective counters or synergies. So it sounds like they will tell you, hey, you should build a Morellonomicon if the enemy team has a lot of healing, or you should build a Thornmail. Interesting. That's pretty cool. Okay, I think I'm down for that. I know that some people are gonna say, "Oh, this takes away some of the skill and things like that," but I think it's just gonna make the game a little bit more accessible. And the players that already know that they should be building those items, it's not gonna affect them. So it just makes the game more approachable for newer players, and it doesn't do anything negative for more skilled players. So I think this is good. I think it's good. All right, all items is for the advanced players that already know the shop inside and out. Give me all my options in one place for fast and easy access. All items you need on one screen, consistent position, data enhancements. Okay, this all sounds really freaking cool. So I'm really excited for 2021. Hopefully my tool still has a place, but I will be at least, trying to update it, at least for now, and you guys can give me feedback on this tool. And I'll explain how it works very briefly before I end this video. So anyway, you have the item name. You can sort here. So you can basically sort A to Z or whatever you want. The categories is if it's a finished item, like if it's like for example, Abyssal Mask, it's a tier 3. If it's kind of a middle of the road item, like it's an item that builds into a finished item, then it's a tier 2. And if it's the most basic level of item, like a Cull, Dark Seal, Fairy Charm is another one, then it's a tier 1. So like the tier 1s build into the tier 2s, the tier 2s build into the tier 3. Actually, I shouldn't use the word tier because I also use tier here. So the reason why I put tier here, this is what I feel like the overall value of the item is. So for example, like S tier would be like really, really gold efficient, and D tier would be not very gold efficient at all. And the way that I base that is I look at the cost of the item. I can calculate the gold value of all of the base stats to get a gold efficiency. I can calculate how much gold the passives need to be worth in order for the item to be gold efficient. And then I have to make a subjective analysis on whether or not I think that the item is worth that, basically. So for example, like Adaptive Helm can be very gold efficient in certain cases, but it's rare. So it's not necessarily saying that Adaptive Helm is a bad item, it's just a very situational item. So that's why it would be like a lower tier. If something is like an A tier or an S tier, that means that they're not a very situational item. It's just like very gold efficient, regardless of what game you're in, essentially. Yeah, for example, like Berserker Greaves. Berserker Greaves is a great example. Berserker Greaves is 128% gold efficient. Why wouldn't you build it if your champion could make use of those stats? So yeah, a very gold efficient item, for example. You can see that I also included, for those items that kind of ramp up, or those items that can change over time, I included different variants. So for example, I have Archangel's Staff unstacked, and I have Archangel's Staff stacked. So you can see that when it's unstacked, it's only 83% gold efficient, and when it's fully stacked, it's 121% gold efficient, not including the passives, of course. So what this is basically saying is that when you buy that item, you're spending way more. You're not getting like your money's worth for the stats when you buy the item. You don't actually get gold efficient until you've given enough time for that item to stack up. The other big thing that I actually want to bring up with Archangel's Staff is there's a difference between gold efficiency and combat gold efficiency. So combat gold efficiency are the stats that actually directly contribute to your ability to kill the opponent. So for example, attack damage, ability power, armor, magic resist, health, those are all combat stats. Attack speed, critical crit chance, those type of things. Things like move speed, mana, health regen, mana regen, those type of things, those are not combat stats. So I did want to make a distinction between combat stats and non-combat stats, because you might look at an item and say, whoa, that item is really gold efficient, but you realize that it actually doesn't have that much combat power. So for example, like Archangel's Staff, most of its gold efficiency is in the mana it provides. So unless your champion can make really good use of that mana, for example, a Rise or a Kassadin, you're actually not getting that much combat power for the item. The item is more of a utility item to make sure you don't run out of mana. So that's how you can basically know the difference between gold efficiency and combat gold efficiency. So yeah, so I can scroll over. I can show you guys the rest of this. You can see I have all the different stats. So attack damage, ability power, armor, magic resist, health, mana, health regen, mana regen, critical strike chance, attack speed, flat move speed, life steal, lethality, magic pen, on hit damage, CDR, percent move speed, and heal and shield power. And then I also have, this is actually a really important part, is the ability notes. So for example, like for Archangel Staff, 10% of the CDR is a unique passive called Haste. And the stats also include the bonus AP from mana that you get here. And then for example, for like Ardent Sensor, I can say the Frenzy passive, the attack speed, is worth 250 to 750 gold, and the on-hit damage is worth 125 to 500 gold. So that way you can basically scroll back over and you can say, okay, well, for Ardent Sensor, Ardent Sensor is already gold efficient, it's 117% gold efficient. So on top of that, I'm also getting an additional, 500 plus gold from passives that go onto my AD carry. So Ardent Sensor is a great example of an item that's very gold efficient if you can make use of all the stats that it provides. Yeah, so you can basically see like all sorts of information, like for example, how much is the movement speed on Black Cleaver worth, what health levels the target needs to have for Blade of the Ruined King to be gold efficient. All sorts of great, useful information is right here. It basically allows you to make better decisions. One of my favorites is Gargoyle Stoneplate. So the Stone Skin passive is worth 1,520 gold when active, and the metallicized active is worth 2,600 gold per 1,000 current health if stone skin is active. So you can make some really good choices based off of that. But anyway, I've talked about this long enough. Linked to this tool will be in the video description below. Also, my Discord has all of my tools in the tools channel. So link to my Discord is also in the video description below. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Please give me your feedback on the tool. Please give me your feedback on the item changes for 2021. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. This is Randomonium signing off.